Imagine spending thousands on your dream cruise, then missing it because of a canceled flight, a sudden illness, or even a hurricane. Without cruise insurance, your vacation and your money could disappear in seconds. In this video, I'm breaking down Cruise Insurance 101, what it covers, what it doesn't, and exactly how to choose the best plan for your trip. As with all kinds of travel, there is always the unexpected that can occur. Flight delays or cancellations, lost luggage, weather delays, or sudden illness. Any of these scenarios, plus more, can find you stranded at an airport or worse yet, the port of call, with the chance of losing everything you spent on your vacation. If you don't have travel insurance, you very well may not get reimbursed for any of it. However, if you do, you can at least save the most of your financial investment and potentially financial loss beyond just the cost of your vacation. So, travel insurance is really good for unexpected medical emergencies. This can include anything that might occur before your trip and prevent you from going on your trip at all. It can require you to cancel or cover medical or dental necessities while you're on your trip. Lost or delayed luggage, trip cancellations and interruptions, like any mode of transportation that you may need to get to the cruise, or if the cruise line or airline cancels your booking, weather-related delays or reroutes. And then, of course, there are various other unexpected events that can force you to be unable to take your trip. The real bottom line is if you can't afford to lose what you spent or even beyond that, you need the security of travel insurance. Next, I want to cover what does cruise insurance actually cover and really what it doesn't. Your typical travel insurance policy is going to include trip cancellation and interruption. So that could be a delayed flight if your cruise gets delayed, things of that nature. Medical coverage while on board. Emergency evacuation. This one's really critical because you're going to be sailing in international waters. And then lost or delayed baggage. Things that are usually not covered though. Canceling just because you changed your mind. So if you wake up one morning and decide that you don't want to go on this trip, you can cancel, but you're probably going to be losing some money if you don't have pre-existing medical conditions unless this is covered by a waiver. Routine care or elective procedures, and weather that doesn't impact the ship's departure. So kind of just as a little theoretical example of when travel insurance can kick in and things that were covered. Say you broke your leg while you were out in port. Your regular insurance may not cover the medical expenses. Potentially, you may need to get a separate flight back to the United States or your country of origin, and any days of the cruise that you might miss because of your injury. Something like this could cost thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars when you pool it all together. But if you have travel insurance, the chances that you're going to lose this money is going to be a lot less. So, cruise line insurance versus third party policies. When you book your cruise, you're often going to be asked if you want to go ahead and purchase the cruise line's insurance policy. And if you want something super simple, then you can go ahead and do that and not have to worry about it. Now, you can also decline it, and if you decide to go back and purchase it at a later date, as long as you do that before the final payment date, you still can. Cruise line insurance is the most simple and straightforward way to cover your trip. Now, I declined it personally so that I could examine the options that were beyond Royal Caribbean because I wanted to make sure that I was getting the kind of policy that I needed at the best price point. But at least with the Royal Caribbean, you can add it at any time before you make your final payment on your cruise fare. It's really convenient and easy to add, so if you don't want to just worry about it and you don't want to do the extra research that may be involved, you're going to get a flat rate at the beginning and it's automatically linked to your reservation. But go ahead and make sure that you read the policy if you're going to get the cruise line insurance. See what your coverages are going to be exactly. If you can't make your trip, is the cruise line only going to pay you back in cruise credit? Or will it not cover having to cancel an airline ticket? Third party travel insurance is often going to be cheaper and more comprehensive. You're going to get cash reimbursement for your expenses. There's not going to be any chance that you're going to be without your money and just a bunch of cruise credit that you're going to have to expend later. It allows you to customize your coverage a little bit more. For example, you could get an additional add-on for cancel for any reason. So if you're not entirely sure that you're going to take that trip, or that there's something going on and you may need to cancel, that may be something you're interested in. Another, $30 to $50 tacked onto your insurance is going to be a small price to pay compared to losing your entire deposit or losing your cruise fare entirely. Of course, going with the third party options, it's going to require a separate purchase, and you really do, like with any insurance policy, you need to read the fine print. If you want to compare travel insurances, there's comparison sites like Insure My Trip or Squaremouth. I really didn't go too deep into these. I would also make sure that you want to look for at least $50,000 in medical and $100,000 of evacuation coverage. I generally find that when it comes to insurance, it's better to make sure that you can cover all of your expenses rather than get the cheapest amount possible, and then if you have to file a claim, you aren't getting as much as what you need to get. So, here are some common mistakes and myths about cruise insurance. One of the mistake number one is if you wait too long to buy cruise insurance. A lot of benefits, and this is particularly critical when it comes to pre-existing medical conditions. Those benefits start only if you purchase soon after or before your booking, usually within about 2 weeks. Now, that doesn't mean that if you've waited longer to do that, that it's going to be a huge negative for you. But if a pre-existing condition is a big concern for you, I would make sure to keep that in mind. Number two, thinking that your health insurance works at sea. A lot of U.S. health plans may not cover international or shipboard emergencies. So keep that in mind that you're not going to be able to just walk onto the ship and know that you're covered. 3, assuming that credit card coverage is going to be enough for you. Some cards do have trip protection, but often the limits on these are pretty low and may not afford you enough coverage if something goes wrong to cover all of your expenses. Number 4, ignoring pre-existing condition waivers. Talked about this a little bit with the caveat about your health insurance, but if you do have health concerns, make sure you get a policy that includes a waiver. So if something happens in relation to that condition while you're traveling, or even before you're traveling, and it causes you to miss your trip, then you're covered. And mistake number 5 is going to be skipping cancel for any reason. If you need that extra flexibility, if you're trying to book, a year and a half out on a trip, as we all know, lots of things can happen in a year and a half. And if you don't have cancel for any reason on there, then you may very well can lose a lot of money if you do need to actually cancel, depending on exactly when you have to cancel. I want to go over a little bit of how to choose the best plan and things that you should take into account. First, start with your trip cost. Beyond your cruise fare, make sure you have at least a pretty good idea, if you haven't already purchased a plane ticket for your trip, but you know you're going to need to, at least do a general estimate as to how much you think that's going to cost. Also, keep in mind you may be staying in a hotel the night before or the night after your cruise. So factor that in there too, because that's all part of your trip. So anything that could potentially be non-refundable, you really want to add into that cost. I would probably at this point take a moment and determine what kind of additional protections you're going to have outside of your travel insurance, because these aren't really replacements in a lot of cases. And we mentioned a couple of these before, that they're not really enough, but they are something to take in mind, because it can make a difference in how much coverage you actually need on your insurance. So, one is a travel credit card. If you plan to pay for your cruise with a travel card, you may have some actual benefits from the credit card yourself. Obviously, you're going to want to take a look at these based on your individual credit card. Check to see what the terms and conditions are and how much coverage you can expect. Bear in mind that with the credit card, you're probably going to have to pay for that entire cost of the trip on that card, because if you don't make the purchase with that card, your any benefits you have aren't going to kick in. So if you don't want to use that particular card to purchase your cruise fare or your airline tickets, then it's kind of a moot point, and you need to make sure you have that covered in your travel insurance. You should also check with your health insurance. While it's not as common, and certainly a lot of health insurances are not going to cover anything for international costs, it's still worth checking to see what, if any, coverage you may have. Then you're going to want to go into the comparison of cruise line between third-party options. Ultimately, you're going to want to do the research and find out what is best for your situation. There are sites where you can compare and contrast. The cruise line's policy should ultimately be readily available for you to read as well, so you can check out the fine print on that before you make a final decision. Make sure with any policy that you're considering, check the coverage limits on your medical and your evacuation coverage. So if this is the only coverage that you're going to have available to you, you're probably going to want to have higher limits than if, say, you are going to have medical coverage over there, or you have other means of covering your bills. See if pre-existing conditions are covered. You're going to want to read the fine print on that in particular very carefully. If they are, there could be a lot of stipulations involved as to when and how that kicks in. It could be you have to purchase the insurance within a certain number of days of putting the deposit on the trip. You could also have things to consider regarding when was the last time you were treated for this medical condition. I've seen that a lot, so there's an awful lot to digest there. Decide if cancel for any reason is going to be a worth it add on. If you already know, or you're so far out from the vacation itself that you want to have the peace of mind that if you do need to back out for any reason, you have the flexibility to do that, then cancel for any reason is probably a good idea for you. The other thing that you can do is book a refundable cruise deposit instead of a non refundable fare. The refundable cruise fare is probably going to cost a little bit more, but if you just have to get that refundable deposit back, as long as you're doing that before you've made your final payment on your cruise, which is usually about 90-ish days out, then you already have that kind of built in that you've thought about this. If you're really, really confident or you're buying at the last minute for a cruise that you're going to be going on this trip, then, maybe you don't really need cancel for any reason. I also encourage you to consider annual coverage versus singular trip coverage. If you plan to travel more than once, and this doesn't just apply to going on, more than one cruise, but if you're going on a land vacation in a different part of the year, it might be worth considering an annual plan if you have these packed within the next 12 months, because you then may not have to buy extra coverage down the line that's going to be more expensive. So it actually, an annual in this case might save you some money. Annual plans are not something you're going to be getting through the cruise line. So if you're really kind of set on that cruise line option, then then annual plans are not going to be the direction you're going to be going. But there are third party sites like Alliance that offer both singular and annual plans, and it's worth comparing the cost of both and thinking about your individual situation to see what's going to be best for you. I do want to go a little bit into my own personal experience. I purchased an annual plan with Alliance, but as part of my research for this, I also went through and priced out a single instance plan for just a singular trip on Faye, which is a very highly rated third party travel insurance site that I found. And the Faye plan actually had some better travel cancellation coverage and was about half the price of the annual plan that I purchased. And as of the time that I'm recording this, I still have a little bit of time to switch if I want to, and I'm still kind of making that decision a little bit on canceling the original plan, because on paper it looks like the single plan might be a little bit better, since I'd have to have, 2 travels or more to be able to exceed the cost of the annual plan. But I might be doing some travel outside of the cruise, even if it's just to visit family for the holidays or another vacation. So the annual plan would cover me there. And it doesn't really have, okay, well, and you have an annual plan, it'll cover you for the next 12 months. You've got a limited number of trips that you can do this with. So if you're expecting to travel in any significant way in the next 12 months from trip to trip, an annual plan is still probably going to be the best bet. If you really don't travel often at all, then you probably want to look into just a singular coverage for your cruise. At the end of the day, my situation is not going to be the same as yours. And my goal here is to help you have the information that you need to consider when looking at travel/cruise insurance. So you always want to choose the option that's going to be the best fit for your situation. Personally, I have no reason to think that the third party option is not the way to go. But if you are looking for just the simplest option that you're straight out the door, you don't have to worry about it, you don't have to research on it, then you can go with the simplicity offered by the cruise line, but it's probably going to be a bigger out of pocket expense. I've seen a lot of plans that only offer about $2,000 in trip cancellation coverage, and that sounds really low when you consider that you might be covering not only cruise fare but also flights. If you have shore excursions or something that have a non-refundable deposit attached to them, the insurance is only going to cover the things that you cannot recover yourself. So if you bought a drink package on the cruise, and as part of all of this you cancel the drink package, the cruise line's going to refund you the money. The travel insurance is not going to give you anything on top of that. But if you paid for a non-refundable hotel, for example, the travel insurance, as long as it's a covered reason, is probably going to help there. Read the fine print of all the policies carefully and understand how that may impact your situation. A lot of the policies have a lot of detail on what goes into a covered instance, so you really want to make sure that you know what to account for and look for a specific add on like cancel for any reason if you feel like this could be a problem. So, and that's especially important if you even suspect that you might have to cancel the trip you're looking at outside of what your policy is going to cover. Admittedly, if I could go back, I think I would have actually had a plan in mind prior to purchasing my cruise. Like, I went into this knowing that the insurance was going to be an important element and that I certainly didn't want to go without it on the trip. But at the same time, if I'd kind of known that some of these were a little bit more time sensitive, I think I would have done that research ahead of finalizing the booking. Now, once you get more into travel insurance and understanding that sort of stuff, maybe it's not as big of a thing. But for a first time cruiser, this is part of my learning curve here. This is something that I've come out of this understanding. And that's really, cruise insurance 101, cuz the bottom line of all this is cruise insurance is peace of mind. You don't want to really be worrying about this when you're on the ship and every little thing. You're there to have fun, you're there to relax. It's protecting your trip, it's protecting your health, and it's definitely protecting your wallet. If this guide helped you any, please hit the like and subscribe button for more cruise tips and planning guides so you can level up your own cruise game. Do you all usually buy cruise insurance if you're not a brand new cruiser? Do let me know in the comments. I respond to every single one.